I realized something was wrong the moment I heard the footsteps, because I wasn't moving. I'd been lying on my couch for maybe an hour, half watching a true crime documentary while scrolling my phone, when the faint thump of weight shifting upstairs drifted through the quiet. At first, I thought I'd imagined it. Old houses make noises, and mine was built in the late 70s. Wood settles, ducts expand. You know the excuses you tell yourself so you don't get up to check. But then I heard it again, slow, deliberate steps, someone trying to place their feet carefully, trying not to be heard. My first reaction wasn't fear, just this heavy, irritated annoyance like, are you kidding me right now? I muted the TV and jolted upright, listening so hard my ears almost buzzed. 3 more steps, then silence. I lived alone, no pets, no roommates, no reason for any sound like that. I forced myself off the couch, all my nerves firing at once. I walked to the bottom of the staircase and stared up into the darkness. My house didn't have one of those open floor plans where you can see everything. The staircase led to a dim hallway with 3 closed doors. From the bottom, it looked like a maw, dark, quiet, waiting. I whispered to myself, probably the house settling, hoping I'd believe it, but I didn't. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam shook as I raised it. The carpeted steps were soft under my feet, each one sounding way louder than it should have. Halfway up, I realized how quiet everything was. Even the refrigerator downstairs had stopped humming. The house felt like it was holding its breath. At the top, I paused, listening. Nothing. I checked the first bedroom, empty. The second, the same. Just neatly made beds, clothes, and the faint smell of detergent. Nothing that should scare anybody. But I still had one room left, the guest room. That's when I noticed the shift. The door wasn't open the way I always left it. It was slightly pulled in, like someone had realized it had been wide open and tried to quietly fix it. I felt something cold spill down my spine. I swallowed, pushed the door open with the side of my foot, and swept the flashlight beam across the room. Nothing. No one. No signs of anything moved. Still, the air felt wrong, thick, holding warmth like someone had been in there recently. You know when your body knows more than your brain? That instinctive alarm animals get? Mine was screaming. So instead of pretending I was overreacting, I backed out of the room and turned on every upstairs light. I was heading back down when I heard the faintest sound behind me. Fabric brushing. Someone exhaling. Not loud enough to be clear, just enough to freeze me mid-step. I whipped around with the flashlight, but nothing moved. Just my own breath shaking in the beam. At that point, logic took over. Not the brave kind, just the survival instinct kind. I needed out of the house. I needed to call the cops. So I moved fast, bounding down the steps and heading straight for the front door. I had my hand on the deadbolt when the motion sensor light in the backyard clicked on. I froze solid. That light only triggered if someone walked directly in front of the kitchen window. I looked over my shoulder. Someone was standing there. A silhouette just a few feet from the glass. I couldn't see their face, just the shoulders, the shape, wide, unmoving. They had been inside the house. They had to have slipped out when I was upstairs. I dropped to the floor instantly, heart pounding so hard it made my vision stutter. I crawled behind the couch and called 911 with trembling fingers, whispering, begging the dispatcher to send someone fast. She told me to stay hidden, stay quiet, stay on the line. But I couldn't help looking. I peeked over the couch. The silhouette had moved, closer, pressed up against the kitchen window now, one hand on the glass like they were testing it, checking the lock. They couldn't see me from there, but God, I felt like they were staring straight through the walls. The dispatcher kept talking, but I barely heard her because the back doorknob was turning. Not violently, slowly, testing pressure, trying to find a weakness. I could hear their breathing, harsh, eager. When the knob wouldn't turn, they started trying the window. I heard the small click of them testing the latch. That latch wasn't strong. I'd always meant to fix it. I pressed myself deeper behind the couch, hand over my mouth to keep from making any sound at all. Every tiny noise in the house felt amplified. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. I was sure they could hear it. The dispatcher said the police were minutes away. Minutes. I stared at the kitchen window, waiting for the moment it shattered. But instead, suddenly, another noise. Sirens. The silhouette backed away. Their shadow slipped out of view just as the motion light clicked off. When the police entered the house, I was still frozen behind the couch, shaking so hard I couldn't stand. They never found the person. Not that night. Not after. But they did tell me something that still keeps me awake. The attic access panel, the one in the hallway ceiling, had fresh fingerprints along the edge. Someone had been up there, watching, waiting, and they'd only climbed down when they thought I'd gone to sleep. The night everything happened, I wasn't supposed to be home. That's what bothered me the most. I wasn't meant to be anywhere near the house. I had planned to be out with friends until midnight, but one by one everyone canceled, so I ended up back home by 8:30, heating leftovers and scrolling my phone. And that's exactly why the doorbell ringing made no sense, because nobody knew I was there. It wasn't the normal quick press either. It was one long, slow hold, like whoever was out there wanted to drain every bit of my attention straight toward the door. I froze in the kitchen, spoon halfway to my mouth. My house was quiet enough that the hum of the refrigerator sounded deafening. When the doorbell finally stopped, the silence afterward felt like pressure on my ears. I didn't move. I didn't answer. After a few seconds, I quietly stepped to the hallway. Through the peephole, I saw nothing. No one. The porch was empty, just the dull orange glow of the streetlight bleeding across my walkway. I felt that tightening in my stomach, the instinctive kind your body develops from a lifetime of true crime shows. I backed away from the door and grabbed my phone, ready to call someone, anyone, just so I wasn't alone with the silence. Then the doorbell rang again. Still long, still slow. I didn't go back to the peephole. Something in me refused to get that close again. Instead, I flicked off the hallway light and crept into the living room where I could peek through the blinds without being seen. The second I lifted one slat, my blood went cold. A man dressed in dark clothing stood just inches from the door, his head slightly tilted, staring at it like he was listening to the grain of the wood. He wasn't facing the street or checking his phone. He was studying my door, studying the lock, and slowly, so slowly, it became clear he was running his fingertips along the edge of the frame, like he was checking how tightly it sealed, checking for weaknesses. I dropped the blind immediately, backing away until my calf hit the couch. My first thought was to call the police, but before I could unlock my phone, 3 sharp knocks hit the door. Not frantic, not polite, purposeful. I didn't breathe, I didn't move. I just stood there, heart hammering. The knocks came again, then again. The third time, they shifted, traveling along the frame as though the man was knocking in different spots to map the hollow areas. I realized something awful then. This wasn't someone trying to get my attention. This was someone deciding where to break in. I reached for the phone again, but then I heard a new sound. The door handle jiggled, slowly, quietly, testing. I backed into the far corner of the living room, lowering myself carefully behind the armchair so I couldn't be seen if the door suddenly opened. The metal clicked softly, someone pressing lightly, trying not to make noise. The man was testing the lock to see if I'd forgotten to secure it. I couldn't see what he was doing now, and that somehow made it worse. I stared at the silhouette under the door, looking for shadows or movement. Then the scraping sound started. Something thin, metal, sliding into the doorframe. I realized what it was. He was trying to slip a tool past the deadbolt. A rush of heat washed through me. Panic, anger, terror, some mix of everything. I dialed 911 with shaking fingers. The dispatcher answered almost instantly, and I whispered the situation. She told me to stay low, stay quiet, stay on the line. While she talked, I listened to the horrifyingly delicate scraping at the lock. The man was patient, calm, experienced. Not a junkie, not a prankster. Someone who'd done this before. The dispatcher asked if I could see them. I said no, but she told me police were close. Then something changed. The scraping stopped, not because he got in, but because he realized something. His shadow moved away from the door, then reappeared at the living room window. He was checking the blinds, checking the glass, seeing if he could spot me. I ducked even lower, my face practically pressed into the carpet fibers. Sweat dripped down my temple. My hands felt numb around the phone. The man exhaled softly. It fogged the glass. He was that close. Then the window rattled. He was testing it, checking the lock. Every window on that side of the house shook one by one. He was circling, methodically, efficiently, looking for the point of entry that would make the least noise. The dispatcher told me the officers were arriving and not to move until they announced themselves. The rattling suddenly stopped. For a few long seconds, I heard nothing at all. Then, footsteps, running, not toward the house, away. A second later, red and blue lights bled across my living room walls. The police found footprints around every window, handprints near the locks, and on the doorframe, small scratches where metal had been worked in. The officer told me, whoever he was, he knew what he was doing. You staying quiet probably saved you. That sentence never stopped echoing in my head, because if I hadn't been home, if I'd really been out until midnight like I planned, he wouldn't have knocked. He wouldn't have rung the bell. He wouldn't have tested anything. He would have just let himself in. I never liked silence, which is ironic, because the night everything happened, silence was the only thing I wanted. My sister had asked me to house sit for her, feed the cat, water the plants, keep an eye on the place while she and her husband took their baby on a weekend trip. Simple, easy. I'd done it before. The only difference this time was the baby monitor. She left it running just in case, even though the crib was empty. It was habit for her, I guess. For me, it was just creepy hearing static from an empty nursery. I set it beside me on the kitchen counter. It emitted that soft, low hiss, rising and falling, always sounding like it was on the verge of picking up a voice. I tried to ignore it. Around 10 p.m., I was cleaning up after dinner, humming to myself, when something faint whispered through the monitor. A soft shuffle, fabric brushing, like someone shifting their weight in the carpeted nursery. I froze, holding a plate under the running water. I waited, ears straining. Nothing, just the static again. I forced a laugh at myself. Nerves, imagination, old house noises, all the usual excuses. But to be safe, I dried my hands and walked down the hall toward the nursery. The house felt wrong as soon as I left the kitchen. Too still, too watchful. I pushed open the nursery door with my elbow. Nothing inside except the untouched crib, rocking chair, and a mountain of stuffed animals. The baby monitor camera in the corner showed the same empty room. I shook off the unease and went back to the kitchen. I had just picked up the next dish when the monitor whispered again, louder this time. This wasn't movement. This wasn't fabric. It was breathing. A slow inhale, a trembling exhale, right next to the mic. I spun around toward the dark hallway, staring at it like I expected someone to walk out. The house answered with silence. My chest tightened, and I grabbed the handheld monitor, turning up the volume a notch. The breathing was faint, but definitely human. Definitely not mine. I hurried down the hall again, heart pounding. When I pushed open the nursery door, I expected to see someone standing there, but once again, nothing. The room was exactly the same. I checked the closet, empty. Under the crib, empty. The camera showed the room perfectly still. I went back to the kitchen, forcing myself to breathe normally. Then the monitor picked up something new, a voice. Not words, just a low, strained sound, like someone trying to speak while being careful. Someone trying to stay quiet. I dropped the monitor on the counter like it burned me. My mind sprinted through possibilities. Some kind of interference? A neighbor on the same frequency? A glitch? But none of those explained the breathing that matched the acoustics of the nursery, the slight echo of a carpeted room, the close mic proximity. I dialed my sister, whispering what I heard. She sounded half asleep but concerned. There shouldn't be any frequency overlap, she said. It's digital, encrypted. It shouldn't pick up anything at all. I didn't respond, because the breathing had returned, slow, wet, uneven. My sister asked, "Are you sure nothing is in the room?" I forced out, "I checked twice." She inhaled sharply. "You locked the windows earlier, right?" My blood went cold. I hadn't. I'd forgotten. I whispered into the phone, "I'm checking." My legs felt like they belonged to someone else as I approached the nursery for the third time. The closer I got, the louder the breathing became through the monitor in my hand. Not frantic, not struggling, just patient. I flipped on the light and scanned the room again. That's when I saw it. The window, unlocked, just barely cracked. A half-inch gap I hadn't noticed before. Cold air slipped through it. But what made my heart stop was the smudge on the glass. A fingerprint. fresh, smudged downward like someone had been slowly sliding it open. I whispered to my sister, "Someone's been in here." She told me to get out of the house immediately. I turned to leave. Then the monitor screamed. Not static, not breathing. A sudden, sharp scrape, like the mic was knocked or grabbed. Then, a voice, raspy, quiet. "Don't." The monitor crackled violently, then went dead. I felt every hair rise on the back of my neck. A cold weight settled on my shoulders. My eyes darted to the closet, still closed. The rocking chair, still. The space behind the door. I hadn't checked behind the door this time. My pulse exploded in my ears. I took one silent step back. The air felt thick, heavy, like someone else was breathing it with me. I didn't look. I didn't dare look. I bolted. Down the hall, past the living room, out the front door without a second thought. I sprinted to my car, locked myself inside, and called 911 with shaking hands. When the police arrived, they found muddy shoe prints on the nursery carpet. Small ones, almost child-sized, but the prints led not to the window. They led to the attic ladder in the hallway ceiling. There were more prints on the rungs. Someone had been watching the house from above, listening, waiting. The officers told me the attic entrance had been pushed open recently, dust disturbed, insulation shifted, but the attic door inside the nursery, that one had fingerprints too. They never found the person, just the footprints. And the monitor turned back on, sitting in the center of the nursery floor, its red light glowing like an open eye. I noticed the man in the picture only because of a tiny detail. His eyes weren't looking at my sister. They were looking at the camera. At me. I'd been house-sitting for her for one night, bored out of my mind, digging through her kitchen junk drawer for batteries when I found the old digital camera she used a few years ago. The screen still worked, surprisingly, and it powered on with half a charge. I figured I'd kill some time scrolling through old photos. Most were harmless family stuff. Birthdays, Christmas, a few blurry selfies. Then I found the series of photos she'd taken during the home remodel. Shots of the house before repainting, the floors being redone, the new furniture being delivered. Random stuff. But somewhere in the middle of them was the photo that made my skin crawl. My sister stood in her living room, smiling at the camera, holding a paintbrush. Behind her, near the hallway corner, was a man's head barely peeking around the wall. Not a blur, not a shadow, a face, dark eyes, scruffy jaw, expression blank, as if he'd been standing there watching her. I blinked, convinced I'd misinterpreted the angle. I zoomed in. Nope, someone had been in the house when she took this picture. I immediately texted her a screenshot with one word, "Who?" She replied instantly, "Who what?" I told her about the man. She insisted it must have been her husband. But her husband was bald. This man had hair. She called me. "Send it to me." I did. 5 seconds later, she called again, this time whispering, "That's not anyone we know. That's not anyone who was supposed to be there." My stomach dropped. "You need to tell me if this is some kind of joke." "It's not a joke," she said. "That photo is from the day I painted the living room. I was alone that whole day. Totally alone." My skin prickled. "You didn't see him?" "No, and I would have. He's right behind me." She told me to lock every door and window in the house and stay on the line. I didn't argue. The unease I'd felt earlier turned into something cold and heavy. I checked everything once, twice. Every lock clicked shut. Curtains drawn. "You'll be fine," she said. "Maybe it's old. Maybe." Then she cut herself off. "Wait, go back to the pictures. What else is there?" My breath hitched. I hadn't thought about that. I opened the camera again and scrolled to the next photo. My sister, same spot, same smile, but the man wasn't just peeking now. He was halfway into the room, like he'd stepped out, inching closer behind her. I felt something tighten in my chest. "Do you see anything?" she asked. "Yes," I whispered. "He's closer." "Show me." I sent the photo. Her voice cracked the moment she called back. "That's not possible. I took those standing in the same spot. I didn't move." I swallowed hard. My hands were shaking as I scrolled again. Another photo. This time the man stood directly behind her, not hiding, not cautious, standing, his face inches from hers, staring at the back of her head. She hadn't turned around. She hadn't known. My voice trembled. "You need to see this." I sent it. My sister didn't call. She didn't speak. Just typed, "Get out of the house, now." I turned toward the hallway. Suddenly, I didn't feel alone. The air felt heavier, as if someone else was breathing it with me. I backed away from the hallway entrance, eyes locked on the darkness. Then the camera in my hand chimed. A new photo had appeared. Not an old one, a new one. A picture taken right then, taken automatically when the camera detected a face. I hadn't touched the button. I hadn't moved the camera at all. My blood turned to ice. I checked the screen. It was a shot of me standing in the living room taken from the hallway, and behind me in the shadows just over my shoulder was him, same man, same expression, staring at me. I didn't scream. I didn't drop the camera. I simply bolted. I sprinted past the couch, grabbed my keys, and ran out the front door without looking back. I only realized halfway to the car that I'd left the lights on, the door wide open, but I was not about to return. I drove 3 blocks before pulling over. My hands trembled so badly I could barely keep the phone steady as I called 911. When the officers searched the house, they didn't find him. They didn't find signs of forced entry. They didn't find anything missing. But they found something. On the carpet in the hallway, near the spot where the pictures had been taken, fresh footprints. Not muddy, not dusty, sweat prints. As if someone had been standing there barefoot, silently watching me scroll through the photos of him watching her. They also found a single fingerprint on the backside of the digital camera, right where someone's thumb would rest to take a picture. Only I hadn't held it like that. The police never identified him. And my sister moved out within the month. But sometimes, late at night, I still feel like someone is standing just behind me, just out of view, waiting for me to turn around.